Hey, what's up, you guys? It's Bloody Jacob here to bring you my weekly review of The Strain. And, excuse the voice crack, but this week's episode was Season 2, Episode 3, entitled Fort Defiance. And, wow, quite a good episode, I'd say. Probably the best episode of the season so far. I know we've only had 3, including this one, so it's a little bit early to say that, but out of what we've seen so far, I think this might be my favorite of the season at this point in time. The premiere was very good. Last week's episode, it was good, don't get me wrong, but it's probably my least favorite so far if I had to pick one. But the Strain's been very good so far this season, like it always was back in Season 1. And it just has, like Penny Dreadful, it has this very good consistency to it that's had since the first episode, I think. And I know some people complain that it's slow or that it's weaker in certain areas, but really, though, I think it's one of the strongest shows currently airing right now. It's one of my favorite shows currently airing right now. I've probably mentioned this in the past, but The Strain and Penny Dreadful are probably my 2 favorite shows still airing new episodes presently. Or at least, they're still continuing their seasons and stuff. I would put Penny Dreadful a little bit above The Strain, but The Strain nonetheless is a great show, and I even put it above the current state of The Walking Dead at this point, but I can talk about that later, and I've already mentioned it before, so let's not ramble too much on about that, right? But, so this week's episode, Fort Defiance, I thought it was very good, like I said, my favorite of the season so far. We had a lot going on as far as Dutch goes. We got quite a bit more development with her and Fett. We also got some new insight into Satrakian's character. We got a great scene with Ephraim talking to the Master through one of the people they're holding, in their little lab. And we also got a pretty surprising result with Vaun, who we now know is the name he goes by. The speaker for the Ancients are trying to stop the Master. Excuse me 1 second while I let my cat out. Or let her in, as a matter of fact. Sorry about that. But, like I said, we got a surprising result as far as Vaughn's mission with Gus went, as far as, kidnapping Eldridge Palmer. That had a result I wasn't really expecting, but we'll get to that in a little bit. Enjoy my cat in the background while she's there. And, I ate a great steak tonight, too. Thumbs up for my dad's cooking. But anyway, I don't know why I just thought of that. But, I'll touch on the Dutch thing of the episode first, I think. If you guys remember back in Season 1, I think it was around Season 1, Episode 8, Creatures of the Night, the episode where they're trapped in the gas station. And we see that, Dutch was paired up with this woman that she was working with, but, she ended up stealing her money and running off and stuff like that. Sorry. But she ended up stealing her money, running off, and things like that. But we find out in this episode that Dutch still has quite a bit of feelings for her. And when she sees this missing poster up about her, she decides to look into it. And so she takes Fett to go investigate, whoever put that poster out, that flyer for the missing person. And, we find out that she's just gone, she's just vanished to this point. We don't really know what's going on with her, if she is killed, if she's turned, or she's being held by someone, I don't know. But, I don't think we ever seen what happened to her. We just seen her escape the gas station. That was the last we had seen. And then we get a conversation between Dutch and, the woman's mother. And, we just see that there is quite a bit more history in their relationship than we initially realized. I mean, we know they were a couple and stuff, but it seems like her mother never approved of Dutch, and her art style, and it seems like she's a little, even though she claims that's not her issue, it still seems like she's a little bit distasteful of the fact that, they were a gay couple, And, so I definitely felt for Dutch at that point, just seeing a lot of judgment placed upon her. I know we don't know all the details right now, but still I connected with her in that scene. And she kind of shows a lot of emotion when she gets back in the van with Fett in there, and Fett comforts her, and then of course Fett gets a little bit of an award for that, and Dutch once again warns him that she's self-destructive and things like that. But yeah, they're just kind of going at this point, and Fett's not going to complain considering what just happened with that. So, so as I said in the episode last week, after Fett and Dutch hooked up for the first time, I really like them as a couple. I think they have really good chemistry together. And I actually find Dutch to be pretty interesting as a character. I actually like her a little bit more than Nora at this point, personally. But I will say that I do worry about Dutch this season because the mother said something along the lines that life is going to hit you, or life is going to come for you, or something like that. And ever since Fett and Dutch hooked up last week, I've been worried about Dutch for the rest of the season. I still feel like she's at risk. She's one of them that isn't really guaranteed to make it out of the season. I don't think, as much as I like her, she's not one of the main characters. You have Ephraim right. You have Ephraim right here, okay? Then Abraham's just a tiny bit lower than F, and then you have Nora. She's kind of right there. Then you have sort of Fett, and then when it gets down here, you kind of have Dutch and characters like that. Gus, and I guess the Zack, Max Charles is up there somewhere too, but none of us are really enjoying him right now. But we'll get to that in a minute. Yes, I'm worried about Dutch for this season. I feel like I have some very bad foreshadowing of what could happen to her later. I did see a promo for the season from another country, and she seems like she's going to be in a very extreme amount of peril later on. I won't say anything more than that. But so for right now, though, I do enjoy her. And let's see, what do I want to talk about next? Oh yeah, and I gotta talk about this great scene that Corey Stoll, this great performance he gave. Of course, him and Nora are still experimenting on the two subjects that they had, captured, and they're both fully turned into strigoi, or vampires now, obviously. And I'm actually getting used to calling them strigoi now. I actually say strigoi before vampires now, so that's good. But yeah, they have the two of them are fully turned into strigoi at this point. And there's still a question of whether they should be holding them like that or not, or just putting them out of their misery. But they gotta do what they gotta do, fight this thing on their end. And we see that Zack actually tries to run off to go see his mother in Queens. I don't get it. I know I was complaining about Max Charles, the actor, last week, but it's not just the actor now. It's the writing for this character, for Ephraim's son. It's something about it's just pretty off at this point, I think. I'm not sure exactly what it is, but I guess the decisions he's making. I mean, I get that he doesn't want to give up on his mother. I get he wants to save her however he can, but he just seems so illogical, so immature, so arrogant, so bratty. Again, I know he's a kid, so he's going to be acting a little bit like that, in this type of situation. But still, it's like he doesn't remember what he's seen in season 1, what these things are like. And so he tries to go on the bus and goes back to Queens. Luckily, Ephraim and the rest of them catch him in time. And then he sort of... my cat out. Once again, I apologize for that, ladies and gentlemen of the jury. But, so he spouts off to Ephraim later, and Ephraim just pretty much has had it. Ephraim has shared this story about his father and how he went around this town and did whatever he could to help people, and he'd take any payment. A case of beer, a fruitcake, and it was actually a very touching scene. But then Zack ends up spouting off to him anyway, trying to destroy their equipment that they have there. And Ephraim finally just has enough, and then he just puts Zack's face right up against the glass of the strigoi that's still alive, the husband. And he says, this is what your mother is, if that wasn't there, it'd be draining every bit of blood out of you. And even after that, it doesn't seem like Zack understands. I mean, I get that F was a little bit harsh right there, but Zack's been a little bit harsh to F since the Season 2 premiere a couple weeks ago. But yeah, so the character of Zack is just kind of bugging me in general, and the acting with Zack isn't very good at this point. I still miss Ben Hilland from Highland, however you say his name, from Season 1. I still miss him. I feel like if he was in the role, we'd be feeling a little bit more sorry for him right now. But then again, the writing for the Zack character right now is still a little bit weird anyway. So I'm still going to give this kid time, still going to give him a chance, but right now that character really, it just isn't clicking with me, so that's not helping. But also with F this episode, he didn't do like a whole lot, but like I said, him and Nora we're still working on neutralizing the virus and things like that. And the great scene with F I mentioned is when he's drinking again, of course, but still he just acknowledges that the master can see through all the strigoi. And as Ephraim explained earlier this season, that the master can't find them because the people that are now turned didn't know where they were in the first place, so they can't automatically send a signal to the master saying where they are because they don't know where they are. So they're safe as far as that goes, but the master can still see through them. And so F decides to send a message to the master. He talks to the strigoi, thinking the master can hear him when he probably can. And he just says that he's not gonna let him win, and that he'd kill himself and his son before he'd let them turn into anything like them. Especially when he sees the strigoi like eyeing Zack in the background and stuff like that. I just thought that was a really well acted and intense scene by Corey Stoll. Hats off to him. I think he did a great job with that scene. And I know I didn't get the words exactly right with the dialogue there, but if you guys watch the episode, you know what scene I'm talking about. So that was all really good. And Abraham this episode, it was very odd at first, I will say that. We see him, early on in the episode, he kills a strigoi, and then he, takes up some of the worms and some of the goo from it, and he actually, what's the word for it? Makes a solution out of it. God, I don't know. Mrs. Johnson would be shaking my head right now, my chemistry teacher. But, he basically, does something to it so it's not completely harmful, and he uses as an eye drop to put into his system. And when we find out later, Nora finds him, and she's able to revive him, luckily. We find out that he actually uses that to keep himself alive, to keep himself somewhat healthy. And we kind of get a reminder of the fact that, he was alive during the Holocaust. He was like a 20, 30-year-old guy. And right now, he's still alive. It seems quite extreme, quite lucky. And we find out he's about 94 years old in reality. And he's been, putting the worms and, putting them into the form of, eye drops and things like that into himself to keep himself alive for all these years. Because chances are kind of slimmer that he'd be alive like this naturally and still as active as he can be. And that reminded me a lot of the Van Helsing character, as if there weren't enough similarities between Abraham and Van Helsing. Because in certain stories, Van Helsing tries to keep himself alive by using Dracula's blood and things like that, and so it runs a lot of that. I kind of understand why he'd do it. He's like Batman. He just doesn't want to quit. He doesn't want to give up being what he is, and he wants to. He doesn't want to die until whatever happens with him and the Master happens. A final confrontation, and so I get it. And Nora seems to be keeping that to herself for now, but we'll see about that. I'm sure other characters will find out later, one way or another. So that was all very good. And I know what else I want to talk about. I'm just trying to think if there's something I forgot. But you guys will remind me if I forgot anything, right? But so like I mentioned earlier, Vaun and his squad and Gus, are gonna kidnap Eldridge Palmer, and we seen a scene with Palmer earlier, talking to Coco, Miss Marchand, whatever her name is, the new assistant he has, that he's taking a liking to, and we see how he actually does seem to legitimately care about her, because we seem like he was actually a little bit teary-eyed about her not being involved with it when she was trying to catch on something more sinister being at work with what he's doing. I'm sure more of that will come to light the further the season gets. And there's this one little hair sticking out right there. It's kind of weird. But anyway, we did see Vaun, Gus, and the rest of them trying to go forward with their plan. And, they set up this whole scheme about, elevator needing to be repaired. And it's kind of cool. Gus gets on there, then Vaun and the rest of them are hanging on to the bottom as it's going up. And so they get in there successfully without really being spotted until they're in there. But Palmer and the other members were able to get into the room, into this safe room before Vaun and the rest of them got in there. And then there's apparently this trap where all these UV rays came on, which I guess would make sense if he's working with I-Course and the rest of them, that he'd have some decent defenses like that. And one of the things I was wondering about earlier is that obviously the Master must be aware that the Ancients are trying to, go after him as well. But I was wondering how aware they were of Vaun and the rest of them being so close to them. And apparently they were aware if they had defenses like that prepared. And these UV lights come on, of course they start burning Vaun and the rest of his guys. And then they get dropped in this little area and they're just burning all over. And Vaun tells Gus to, leave, and he does. Even though Gus is trying to help him. But, so that was a pretty surprising ending to it. I don't think Vaun is dead. I mean, I could see some of his other guys being killed here. Or at least, whatever happens next, I could see a few of the other ones being killed. But I think Vaun will survive for quite a while in the series, I'd think. The speaker for the Ancients and things like that, the main one that we see talking and stuff. I feel like he'll be around for a while. But I'm not sure how he's going to get out of this. I'm not sure what's going to happen after this, but I like to think that he'd be a little bit harder to kill, or he's at least meant for a greater purpose later. But we'll see how that goes. And so that's all I have to say about this week's episode. Like I said, a very good episode, my favorite of the season so far. I'm looking forward to the rest of this season. Of course, the strain has been great this season as it was last. And so I hope you guys enjoyed this video. If there's anything I forgot to mention or you want me to elaborate on, feel free to leave a comment below. We'd love to discuss it with you guys. And something I'm going to be doing on my videos now too. Add me on Facebook, follow me on Twitter, and Instagram. I don't have an Instagram. Follow me on Facebook, Twitter, and Movie Pilot. Yes, I'm a member, a content creator of Movie Pilot now. A link to it is in the About Me section on my channel. And so I'll talk more about that within a couple weeks, hopefully. But I'm a content creator on Movie Pilot now. I share my videos there. I was contacted by them to start posting on there. Very cool opportunity. And so I'll catch you guys next time. And peace. Like I said, I'll talk more about that later. And you'll see what I mean by later when it comes. But peace.